Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, friends. How are you this morning? I hope you're in good health and secure. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice, for your time, for your concerted efforts, right? I'm thinking about two different things. But we're going to continue with Chapter 2, Skillful Means, of the BDK translation, English translation of the Lotus Sutra. I think I may just have to put this word into the Buddhism reference book. I'll have to make that edit. I keep running across this translation, and I see it everywhere. The word save, right? Savior, save. It's an unfortunate word used in Buddhism, in a lot of Buddhist scholarship, because it's a prime example of that cultural bias that's built into our societies and cultures, right? Because Buddhism stands outside of all the world's religions, and religions have a very common, it's like the building block of all religions, that we at some point are limited in what we can do with our lives vis-a-vis the powers outside of ourselves. It's in, rhetoric, even in corporate speak, right? The powers that be. There's always this idea that we're somehow slaves and we very much are, but by our own choosing. That's what Buddhism points out, and nothing else does. Like societies, cultures for thousands of years have subjugated the masses to the will of a few. And whether they realize it or not, because many of the elite are, quite frankly, too stupid to realize the power they have, but they enjoy the hell out of it. So they're not about to change anything, right? Sorry, I got political for a moment, but it is a politic. Politics is about how we relate to one another, right? And to save another person is this complex power dynamic. I mean, philosophers have talked about it for eons, right? From Foucault to Nietzsche to Heidegger to on and on and on. So I hate seeing the word in the context of Buddhism because it simply doesn't belong, right? When you assist somebody to go onto their path of enlightenment, you're not saving them. You're doing your work of being a good human being, a bodhisattva. It's up to each of us to save ourselves. So why use the word save? Yeah, let's go back to the Four Noble Truths. It doesn't say save. How do you save someone or save yourself by ceasing the cravings and clingings? That's an activity we do ourselves. What does Shakyamuni use? What word? Liberate. Now, you could say, well, that's essentially the same thing because we have liberators and we get liberated. But still, liberating ourselves to liberate others, it doesn't have the same charisma as save, because save implies that the person that you're assisting doesn't have the wherewithal, the power of their own mind to pursue for themselves, to make their own decisions. Oh, we have to draw them out, and somehow do for them what they cannot do for themselves. What a crock. Do you see how not Buddhist that is? I mean, all of Buddhism, Shakyamuni's enlightenment, is about how do we live this life fully under the power of our own agency. I continue, and I'm going to have to say it because it's on my mind. I keep getting these emails from certain people who don't want to let go of the idea of a soul or a permanent self. and they interchange the terms, or they say they're not interchangeable, they're different things. I'll just say this very quickly about self. And I have, remember, I've talked a few times about Gandhara and recent discoveries just in the last few decades. In Gandhara, that northeastern area of India that's now several countries, where they found all these buried translations of oral texts. And they have something in the Abhidharma here, which is early teachings, right? And it's an argument about time and self. The two go hand in hand. You hear me talking about time all the time. All the time. So I was thinking this morning, well, how could I simplify this down to just an essential? And I thought, this may work for some. It's the difference. See, we say self, and we just throw it out there, or soul, like it's something, like there's an atom called self, right? But see if this visualization helps you. You can think of self as a thing that goes through constant, right, moment to moment to moment, changes. Like that self is being altered. A lot of people think that way about self, karma, life, right? That's very samsaric, because that is exactly what Shakyamuni points to as the cravings, the clinging to that self being modified, right? That's real common thinking. That's our samsaric mind at work. And what Shakyamuni is saying is like, and Nagarjuna really dives into this a lot, but he's saying, instead of accepting that pattern of thought, that flow of thoughts, what if you understood that moment to moment to moment to moment, because you understand that each moment is a self, that the self that's being modified doesn't exist. That's not what's happening. What's happening is a self is being, moment to moment, created and replaced. Create, extinct, replace. Create, extinct, replace. Cycle of birth and death. Then the idea of a self is ridiculous. What's more, and I think I've said this before in previous videos, what we're actually experiencing isn't a self. It's selfing. Now think about that. If as we're selfing, right, we can influence that engine, moment to moment, moment to moment, cycle of birth and birth, rebirth, death, rebirth, right? I can't say that fast. But we can influence those moments. But we exist, quote unquote, in the moments, not across them. We're not something being modified. We are the being of the modifications constantly until there's no rebirth, because the body, the mind, the brain, everything gone, done, not moment to momenting anymore. It's just extinct. See, it becomes much easier to understand then, because then there's no remainder. Now, what do I do with the self? Well, it was never there. People will continue to have problems with this. You can't force someone to get it, but hopefully that little analogy maybe helps. All right, let's get back to the Tathagatas, shall we? This is Shakyamuni still talking in verse to reiterate basically this Skillful Means chapter. I don't know if we'll be able to finish it today, but let's get to it. Let me get to it, okay? All the Tathagatas will liberate sentient beings. with immeasurable skillful means, causing them to enter the wisdom of the Buddhas that is free from corruption. What is corruption in Buddhism? Any thought, any action, any residual attachments, craving, clinging that slows down our development of awakening, our enlightenment. Right? Like thinking of a permanent self. That's just a huge obstacle, right? That's corruption. Of those hearing this Dharma, there will be no one who will not become a Buddha. Now, remember the worlds of learning and realization? When he says, or when the translation says hearing, we're talking about deeply hearing, not just noise making, right? But when he says hear, he means hearing the Dharma. That's a qualified kind of hearing. It's when you hear the story, like in the next chapter of the parable, you hear the meaning and the implications, not just the story, because it's the hearing of the Dharma, the experience of truth. And if you do that, there will be no one who will not become a Buddha. How could you not? The original vow of the Buddhas was to cause all sentient beings to universally attain the very same Buddha path that I have practiced. And there it is. That statement right there takes apart the word save, even liberated, because it's a cause to all sentient beings to universally, anyone who does this, will attain the very same Buddha path that I have practiced. In other words, my own Buddhism. And this is the story of the Lotus Sutra, isn't it? I'm not teaching to your capacity. I'm not feigning to your predilections and your cultural biases. I'm telling you, this is how I did it. You can do the very same thing that I've done. You have this capacity in you. Just awaken it like this. That's what the Lotus Sutra is. Okay? Even though the Buddhas of the future will teach hundreds of thousands of kotis of innumerable paths to the Dharma, their teachings will actually be for the sake of a single vehicle, Myoho Renge Kyo. This vehicle, right? All the Buddhas, the best of humans, what are the best of humans? Fully realized bodhisattva, right? Know that all dharmas are ever without substance, and that the Buddha seeds germinate through dependent origination. Now that's a mouthful, isn't it? But understand, all dharmas, let's for a moment substitute the word experience or ultimate experience, the dharmas. The dharmas are basically the experiences of insights. They're not conjecture. They're actual. And because they're actual experience, they are ever without substance. You can't grab enlightenment, right? You can't buy it at Walmart. You can't get it from your best buddy. It's something you alone must experience, and that experience is the Dharma, but it's in your mind. It's not substantial. It's not something you can put in a box. It's not something you can put in a butsudan. It's not something you can inscribe on a piece of paper. It happens in your mind, in your prepared, open mind, your Gohonzon mind. That's where Dharma actually, enlightenment, Buddha-ness, actually happens, in the mind. Buddhism was saying this for 50 years, yeah? That is why they will teach the single vehicle, having realized on the terrace of enlightenment that the state of the Dharma is permanent and unchangeable in this world. The leaders will teach with skillful means the present Buddhas of the 10 directions, as numerous as the sands of the Ganges River, revered by devas and humans, appear in the world and teach the Dharma to make sentient beings feel at peace. Now, is this a bunch of little seated men on lotus flowers floating around teach? No, it's you and I. Because as bodhisattvas, we are the Buddhas, the enlightened, the awakened ones, sharing this path. And by sharing it, we inspire others to do the same. Bodhisattva. That's what that means. They know the utmost tranquility, and although they teach various paths with the power of skillful means, right? We all have our own ways of sharing our experiences, and the people that are around us because their karmic engines are not that dissimilar from our own. We attract like magnets, right? Their teachings are actually for the Buddha vehicle. Knowing the character of sentient beings, their deep intentions, past acts, wishes, persistence, and strength, their keen or dull faculties, the Buddhas teach with skillful means, using various explanations, illustrations, and words in accordance with the capacities of sentient beings. Right? That's what I just said. Your capacity, my capacity. We all have capacity for full enlightenment. But in our samsaric environments, our karmic freight trains, we have ways of seeing and experiencing and insights that are unique to each of us. And to some, it won't make any sense. But to others, I can relate to that. I know what you mean. This, blah, 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 blah. Well, the way you just interpreted and got your insight is the way you will help others attain their insights. And they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, blah, 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 blah. But the enlightenment, the awakening, same. Now I, too, reveal the path of the Buddhas. Through various paths to the Dharma, to make sentient beings feel at peace. And that's another way of saying to remove stress and anxiety, suffering, Four Noble Truths, from your daily experience of life. Maximize your experience of life. Right? Through the power of my wisdom, I know the dispositions and desires of sentient beings and explain various teachings with skillful means, enabling them to obtain joy. O Shariputra, you should know that through the Buddha I, in other words, I'm Shakyamuni, I experienced full enlightenment through my Buddha I with my enlightened mind as a human. And what does Nichiren identify that as? Gohonzon. I see beings wandering in the 6 states of existence, right? The 6 lower realms, who are poor, deprived of merit and wisdom, who are entering into the bitter path of birth and death, cycle of birth and death, moment to moment to moment, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, right? And are suffering repeatedly and without end, not repeated lifetimes, repeated moment after moment after moment, reinstantiating their attachments, their clinging, and suffering. See, once you understand those concepts, this reads very simply, doesn't it? But if you're still being mystical and mythological and magical about these repeatedly and without end, oh my goodness. Well, that's not Buddhism. That's something else. And are suffering repeatedly without end, and they are deeply attached to the desires of the 5 senses, the skandhas, the samsaric clinging. Just as yaks are attached to their tails. Obstructed by greed, they are blind and cannot see. Right? Possessions, wanting more. I need more of that. They do not seek the Buddha, who has great power, nor the Dharma that cuts off suffering. Deeply immersed in false views, they try to eliminate suffering through suffering, because it's just attached to some other myth or magical thought. Well, if I just had more of that, then I'd be happy. Right? That's what he's saying. That's the false reasoning. That's the delusion that he's always talking about. I feel great compassion, he goes on, for such sentient beings. I understand. That's samsara, right? It's unavoidable. Sitting on the terrace of enlightenment for the first time, looking at the Bodhi tree and walking about, during those 21 days I was thinking thus: the wisdom I have attained is subtle and supreme. It's so fragile and yet so fundamental, right? But the faculties of sentient beings are dull. Not because we're stupid, but we're just not looking. We don't know to look. We're so immersed in samsara, right? They are attached to pleasures and blinded by delusion. That's what I just said. How can I liberate such beings? Dislodge them from their avarice, their greed. They don't even know they're greedy. They're so immersed in constantly chasing, samsara. Then Brahma and his Devaputras, Sakra, the world protectors of the four quarters, Mahasvara, and the other devas, together with a retinue of hundreds of thousands of myriads of attendants, paid their respects with palms pressed together and begged me to turn the wheel of the Dharma. And then I thought, if I only praise the Buddha vehicles, those beings who are submerged in suffering will not believe this Dharma. Because they reject and do not believe the Dharma, they will fall into the three troubled states of being. I would rather not teach the Dharma and instead immediately enter nirvana. Let me be an example and just get the hell out of here, because anything I say is just going to drive these people, regular, ordinary, ignorant people of Buddha-ness, deeper into their delusions. Yikes. Then I thought of the power of skillful means. And I have to relate my anecdote I've often repeated here. When Shakyamuni first started teaching what he attained, the Avatamsaka Sutra, you may know it as the Flower Garland or the Kigan Sutra, his first teaching. He only taught it for 2-3 weeks, by all accounts. Why do you think that is? Most of the other sutras were for many years. 8 years, 10 years, 12 years. The Lotus Sutra, 8 years. Why 2-3 weeks? What do you think happened? I think he's saying it right here. If I teach what the experience of enlightenment is like, people will just go, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? But instead, as he says, then I thought of the power of skillful means. Wow. Yeah, if I just reach to their knowledge and slowly raise their understanding, there's a chance there, right? Practiced by past Buddhas. This path that I have attained should now also be taught as the three vehicles. When I thought this, the Buddhas of the 10 directions appeared with beautiful voices, praised me, saying, "O Shakyamuni, splendid! O supreme leader, you have attained the highest Dharma, and yet still use the power of skillful means, following all the other Buddhas. We too have attained the best and utmost Dharma, and with discretion have explained the three vehicles for the sake of sentient beings. Those with little wisdom seek inferior teachings and do not believe that they will become Buddhas. So you can't put that carrot in front of them. Just show them how to work on developing themselves, right? That is why we use skillful means, and with discretion teach of the various results. Although we teach the three vehicles, it is just for the instruction of the bodhisattvas. O Shariputra, Shakyamuni continues, you should know that when I heard this profound and beautiful roar of the noble lions, I chanted with joy. He chanted? Yeah. Homage to the Buddhas. Namu. And I thought, since I have been born in this defiled world, I will follow the other Buddhas and expound what they have expounded. After contemplating this, I set out for Varanasi. All dharmas have the tranquil character of the Dharma. This could not be expressed in words, so I taught the 5 monks through the power of skillful means. This I named turning the wheel of the Dharma. Now you know what that means. It's skillful means. And immediately the word nirvana appeared in it, and the different designations for arhat, which the BDK considers to be a Buddha. We can argue about that. The Dharma and Sangha. These are all terms that came out of skillful means. From a great many kalpas ago, I have always taught like this. I have praised and illuminated the teach. I, not being Shakyamuni, but my enlightenment, Buddha. The teaching of nirvana, saying that it ends the sufferings, in other words, liberation, of birth and death, the cycle of birth and death. O Shariputra, you should know that I see immeasurable thousands of myriads of kotas of the Buddha's heirs who have set out for the Buddha path and heard the Dharma explained with skillful means, have respectfully come before the Buddha. And then I thought, the reason why the Tathagatas appear to explain the wisdom of the Buddhas now is precisely the right time for this. O Shariputra, you should know that those who have the dull faculties and little wisdom, and those who are attached to mere signs and are arrogant, cannot accept this teaching. Now I am happy and fearless. Having openly set aside skillful means, I will teach only the highest path to all the bodhisattvas. He's addressing this teaching, the Lotus Sutra now. Having heard this teaching, the bodhisattvas and 1,200 arhats, freeing themselves from the web of doubt, will all become Buddhas. Wow, everyone. Even the arrogant ones. Just as the Buddhas in the 3 periods of the past, present, and future, and that's, again, part of that Abhidharma discussion that I will have with you. Teach the true nature of the Dharma. Now I too will expound the Dharma that is beyond conception. All the Buddhas appear in worlds far away and are difficult to meet. It's just hard to keep focused on this goal of awakening, enlightenment, if only because it's difficult to constantly remind ourselves of what it truly is. Yeah. And just so, because I went by it, past, present, future. Remember, I started this with a discussion about the self and how the self is not something that exists with moment-to-moment alterations, but the self is truly the alterations themselves as they happen in this moment. So keep that thought going for a moment and think past, present, future. See, that's part of our delusion, that eternal or permanent self. We think the past is still here. We say the past exists. No, it does not. Oh, what do you mean it does not? I don't wake up today and everything's purple and green. Yesterday, what I saw yesterday is still here. Well, again, Buddhism is about the mind. Never forget that, my friends. Your mind is experiencing, you could call it memory, but that's just another moment-to-moment instantiation of thought that is occurring now. Whatever occurred to you 10 years ago or yesterday, that's no longer you. It's no longer real. It was real then. The past is the past. But see how language can mess us up? The past is the past. It is what it was. It no longer is. What your estimation of what it is now is the estimation you're putting to it now, with all that you are in this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. Same with the future. How many future plans have you made that have come to some sort of fruition or not? Whatever they might become, see, even the word become assumes a modified thing. But if the modifications are only happening in the moments, then the thing is the moment. It's not a future, it's a now. So what you can do is influence the now, which influences the what? You hear me use the word all the time, momentum. That mechanism is what I refer to as the engine of life, karma. Constantly instantiating, modifying, right? Cycle of birth and death. Even if they appear in this world, it is difficult to hear their teaching. He's talking about enlightenment. It's just hard to hang on to. It's hard to hang on to it conceptually, awakened. But that's our mission in our practice, isn't it? Even in immeasurable, innumerable kalpas, it is difficult to hear this Dharma. And those who are able to hear this Dharma are also hard to find. They are precious few. They are just like the Adambara flower, which appears only once in a very long while and beloved by all, is considered a wonder among devas and humans. Those who hear this teaching, hearing it, learning, Shravakas, happily praise the Buddhas by uttering even a single word, having already paid homage to all the Buddhas of the 3 periods, which are right now. Such people are even more extraordinary than the Adambara flower. All of you have no doubts. I, the king of the Dharma, now proclaim to the great assembly, I lead and inspire the bodhisattvas only with the path of the single vehicle. I'm here without disciples. You might as well say, I am Buddha-ness. That's the beginning, the now, and the end of enlightenment. O Shariputra, and all of you, the Shravakas and Bodhisattvas should know that this true Dharma is the hidden essence of all the Buddhas. This awakening, this enlightened perception. I'm going a little long today, but we're almost done. In the troubled worlds of the 5 kinds of defilement, sentient beings are only attached to various desires and ultimately do not seek the path of the Buddhas. In the future, the impure will hear the Buddha teach a single vehicle, but they will be confused and will not accept it. They will reject the Dharma and fall into the troubled states of being, the realms. To those who are modest and pure and seek the path of the Buddhas, I will praise extensively the path of the single vehicle. This path, Myoho Renge Kyo. O Shariputra, you should know that the Dharma of all the Buddhas is like this. Of Of course, this is the one vehicle. They teach the Dharma with myriads of codes of skillful means. They all have different, right? The Ovation Sutra, the Innumerable Meaning Sutra, is all about this. According to the capacities of sentient beings, right? They try to reach people's current state of understanding of the world to slowly elevate them toward the path of this one vehicle, Myoho Renge Kyo. The inexperienced cannot understand this. You have come to know with certainty the skillful means of the Buddhas, the teachers of the world, that are expounded in accordance with the people's capacities. That's what you've been following me a long time now, and you see this is what I've done for over 42 years. And now, for these final years of my life, we're going to get down to the core, the ultimate, the one vehicle that everyone without exception can attain enlightenment with, yeah? All of you have no further doubts. Let great joy arise in your hearts and know that you will all become Buddhas. Oh, that's a big reversal for the people of learning and realization, right? For the people of incorrigible disbelief, the Ichantikas, yeah? All right, that's the end of Skillful Means. Chapter 3, A Parable. That will be an interesting story we can discuss its meaning. I have to thank you once again for listening. If anything I've said sparked some question for you, please let me know. Email me or put it in the comments if you feel so motivated. That's also helpful, as well as liking and subscribing these videos to expand, to let the algorithms go, ooh, there might be something interesting here. And that puts us higher up in the results so more people can find, we can grow the Sangha. It's part of propagation. It's a Bodhisattva act. So this is why I ask you to take a few seconds to do that. As well as, all the links in the description where you can get ebooks or print books or a proper mandala, the free stuff, the podcast. All of these videos are available as audio files in a podcast. You can get that, the Buddhahood podcast. Lots of free information on threefoldlotus.com. So help yourself, whatever you need to support your practice, to move you toward confidence and resolve, to remove all doubt. That's what all these resources are about. So thank you for participating. Thank you for your practice. I will see you in the next one, and we will begin the parable chapter. Okay. Take care of yourselves. That's important. Be kind to yourself. Watch your health. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.